Words, and you can kind of see what's going on.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the Desert Blockchain event on Wednesday, March the 28th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Arizona time. And we have these sessions every last Wednesday of the month. So I'm delighted that everybody's here tonight. My name is Jay Carpenter. I'm the founder of Desert Blockchain, co-organizer along with Jason Horton. And these sessions, the primary goal of these sessions is to create community. So you being here tonight is part of creating community here in Arizona, and basically putting our community, not only in Arizona but elsewhere, in the forefront of what's possible with this paradigm for new technology and exploring. So tonight we are going to expand our community because we're going to go outside the state of Arizona, and we're going to talk about what's going on the innovation front in terms of policy and actual use cases in another state. So personally, I've been in the blockchain space almost every waking moment for about 3.5 years now. And I think it's really time for everybody to transition into something that actually works, I mean, obviously cryptocurrency works, and a lot of people have made a lot of money in cryptocurrency, but the blockchain is much, much broader than that. And so from this point on, with Desert Blockchain events and topics and so forth, I'm really interested in kind of dedicated that we focus on things that are actually working with the blockchain. So we're fortunate tonight in that we're going to look at an actual real estate transaction that involved the Ethereum blockchain. And this happened, I think, in February. Yeah. In February. And so that happened in Vermont. And I've known Peter Early for 4 or 5 years at least. And I was interested in a really cool innovation called a virtual company that Vermont basically created and launched and had the legislature approve, which was designed for this entire digital paradigm, entire digital ecosystem and economy, where the only thing that was in the ground was a statutory agent. And Peter worked on that along with some really, really bright people in the legal realm. So that's when I met Peter, and I know he's been involved in other really cool, innovative things, including this first transaction that involved the Ethereum blockchain. So Peter is an attorney with Gravel and Shea in Burlington, Vermont, and he is in Phoenix, and I invited him to, actually he's in Tucson this week, and he drove up here for this session. But he's in Arizona, and I invited him to come by and talk to us about some of the really cool things that they're doing in Vermont that I think are cutting edge in the realm of policy, and also that some actual things that happened. And then later on, we will have some folks from Propy. Propy was the platform behind this transaction in Vermont, and we'll talk about Propy, what that is, and the dynamics of that. So does anybody have any questions before we get started?
Only you may want to announce the FinTech bill, the regulatory sandbox having been signed.
Yes. So last Thursday at the AZ Tech Summit, the governor signed the FinTech sandbox bill. And Mark and Caroline and some others were really instrumental in that in the past. So I want to thank you, Mark, for all your work.
And thank you, Jane. You've been a booster and a designer and, a force with
And hopefully we'll have an actual application of that pretty soon. So, who's here for the first time? Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. Anybody that's a policymaker in the legislature or so forth? Cool. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Peter. And Peter, you can basically tell us what you guys are up to in Vermont and go from there.
All right, thanks, Jay. Yeah, as Jay said, I've been sort of splitting my time between Vermont and Arizona for many years. I had family both in Scottsdale and Tucson, so I've been back and forth for probably 20 years now. I'm trying to lengthen my stays, particularly this time of year, more and more. The Jay family.
Peter, if you don't mind moving just a little bit that way. That's
Jay family.
a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. It's counterintuitive here. Here we go.
There you go.
All right, great. Awesome. I don't have my notes someplace, Jay, but anyway, so it's Jay family, and I'm happy to be here. And as Jay said, I've been involved in Vermont. I'm a lawyer with Vermont, a firm there, and also through our bar association, been involved in legislation trying to participate, sort of create innovative ways to structure legal entities to take advantage of digital change. And so, as Jay said, thanks, Jay. That's helpful. One of the things he and I worked on originally was a bill that, I made him aware of, we worked on originally in Vermont, was a bill that would allow companies to sort of be formed that were just virtual companies. And that means that basically they have a registered agent, but the things were structured so they communicate and totally digitally, have shareholder meetings digitally, everything digitally and electronically. And we passed that law a few years ago, and some people have been using it. It hasn't been as widely accepted as we would like. I think partially because there's a PR piece, a lot of this blockchain stuff, and I think you guys know this. I mean, one of the things, the challenges we have in Vermont is to make it innovative, but we've got to get the word out we're innovative. So recently, Delaware passed a law basically allowing blockchain record keeping, sort of a big deal. Blockchain, you can keep your corporate records in blockchain. Well, we've had language in our law for like the last 7 or 8 years saying you could do all this stuff electronically. And it's pretty obvious to me that would include blockchain. But apparently we didn't get the word out. So now we're going to change our law to say electronic including with blockchain in there. So it just kind of should be obvious. And actually one of the things I find in terms of doing this legal stuff with respect to tech applications with blockchain is that there's always this issue of making sure that if you need a legal clarification as to something, you can get it. So one of the issues we've had in Vermont is whether public records can be kept in the blockchain, even though our statute says you can do it electronically. And we're going to be basically trying to change the law to say, well, including blockchain. So we're going through our laws and basically trying to authorize that one. But I guess my point is that a lot of the legal developments for blockchain are sort of small steps leading to a conclusion that we may not even be aware of right now. And I think some of the things we're trying to do in Vermont, we're trying to sort of kick the ball down the road and go into a direction knowing we're going to have to change depending on what happens in the future with respect to applications of blockchain. One of the interesting things I was having a conversation with the gentleman up here during dinner about, gee, what's the deal with blockchain and legal laws pertaining to blockchain? What is this all about? And I sort of, the answer is that it's not so much blockchain as a means of methodology for doing business. It's the changes in business that are going to be caused by blockchain. So if you're going to have a new insurance paradigm that's facilitated through blockchain technology, or a new real estate transfer paradigm facilitated through blockchain technology, that's kind of where the laws need to anticipate. It's not the technology itself. It's sort of how it's being used and how things are going to change because of it. So, but anyway, my thoughts and my reason why I'm here tonight is I'd like to share what Vermont's doing with you guys. I hope you find that interesting. I'm also going to really like to learn more. I've been having some interesting conversations with you, some of you participants here tonight, regarding things you're doing in Arizona that I can take back and sort of benefit from, and then also explore some reciprocity, maybe some ways. I'm having some discussions with people here tonight regarding maybe sort of Arizona and Vermont sort of doing some stuff on a reciprocal basis in certain areas, like your sandbox bill. We were talking about this before I started. we think in Vermont. It's a great idea, very envious. Very envious you had regulatory people willing to take this on. You know, I don't know that we have that, which I'll go back and try, but it's a great idea, and really admire that. I mean, it's a real innovation. I think any innovation I've seen, that's one of the best around. So, but anyway, that's my third objective. One of the things that was been interesting, we did a while back, you might find interesting as well, is that when we did this virtual company thing, we also passed a law in Vermont that exempted companies that were virtual companies from our income tax. And so the idea was that if you wanted to set up a virtual LLC, you could elect the corporation and you'd be exempt from, and you'd pay tax, but it'd be on the Delaware formula, which lawyers will tell you it's pretty low level tax. And so we did that. And that encompasses virtual companies in Vermont. It's also going to cover something that I'll talk about a bit more in terms of one of our legislative developments we're trying to work on. We also in Vermont, a few years ago now, passed a law, the first blockchain law that I think might be of interest to people here, which is basically said that if you record a document on the blockchain, a record on the blockchain, it's afforded the same legal deference as if you had recorded it with a town clerk or a municipality. And so that allows things to be recorded on blockchain and to be then introduced as a record in court, the same way you'd be able to introduce like a deed or something in court that's been recorded with a town clerk. And that's actually, we've dealt with companies and have included references to Vermont law just for that purpose, so that they could know if they're transacting in a way which uses blockchain as a blockchain way of record keeping, they could use our law in Vermont to sort of say, and when you record it, you use something in blockchain to recognize a transaction on blockchain, it's afforded legal deference, and so it could be recognized in court, which is the first thing that sort of we did, and actually I think it's a pretty creative way of dealing with that. So I guess the question really is, so what are we doing now? Well, we have Vermont had, just to back up a second, Vermont last year had the legislature engaged a fintech report, which is actually you guys might find interesting. It's on our secretary, it's actually through the Department of Financial Regulation. It's on their website. And it's basically had a whole bunch of initiatives, things that we might think about doing with respect to blockchain. Not that anybody's seen that, but they had a whole laundry list. It was done by Vermont Law School Center for Legal Innovation, and then with input from various state agencies, and it had a whole list of stuff. And it included things like providing potential e-residency. You know, Estonia's gotten this whole idea of e-residency for people. It had an idea regarding autonomous agent corporation or LLCs that would sort of house Internet of Things. So you have virtual, self-driving cars or artificial intelligence sort of driven things, units that would be, they'd be governed. You could have them housed in an LLC, and then it would have some human responsibility, but that was sort of way out idea that I think it's been dropped. So the legislation has been dropped. But there are a whole bunch of other different ideas in there, and it was an interesting bill, an interesting report, and
I have a question for you.
Legislation. Pardon me?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
On the LLC, I think that's really cutting edge and is out there. Who generated that? Was that somebody in the state of Vermont that?
Yeah, we're fortunate. A guy named Oliver Goodenough, who is a law professor at the University of Vermont, at Vermont Law School. I'm not sure it was his idea. It was his idea, and a guy named David Johnson, who's a law professor at NYU. They did it, and one of the things in Vermont, and maybe true here, is that if you do have a good idea that our legislature is pretty good about, especially if it doesn't cost any money, but they think it's creative and it's going to maybe generate some jobs, they were supportive of it. So we were able to get it through the legislature. Yeah, and it was a part, at that time, we were trying to also, this really never got off the ground, adopt a robust, through our Secretary of State's office, a robust way of creating operating agreements and limited liability company agreements for LLCs. So you can not only form the thing, which you can do pretty much anywhere, but you can also have an automated way of filling out an agreement that would be you could use for an LLC. But now there are a lot of other automated ways to do that. So that's never really took off. But,
So you've got some academics that have vision in this area.
Yeah.
That are motivated to go ahead and create proposals for legislation.
Right.
And then the legislature and the government is friendly to that sort of innovation. Is that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's yes, most of the time. I mean, I don't know. It's Caroline. Instead of you're doing legislatures, there's always it always can be a curveball, and people, and it's a real balancing act in terms of trying to make sure you don't get somebody's nose bent out of joint for some reason unrelated to the merits of legislation. And then we also, yeah, yeah, sure. And also you get these things of, well, we're holding up the bill because something unrelated to the merits of the bill is whoever it is, one senator says, I need something else from you before I'm going to pass this bill out of my committee.
That never happened.
I know, yeah. Well, it happened to us this year on this bill. I mean, we had 4 people on a committee wanted to pass it, but the guy who's in charge of it wouldn't do it, wouldn't vote it out until he got his pound of flesh and something totally unrelated. But yes, but basically they're pretty supportive, you know. I mean, our state has 600,000 people. I mean, it's less, I mean, it's tiny, I mean, compared to use. So it's easy to go reach legislators and talk to them. I mean, it's easy to, you know, I know the Secretary of State. I know the guy who's in charge of the financial regulation department. I mean, you know, I deal with them all the time. So it's a small place. And so that has some advantages in terms of trying to get stuff done. Aren't as many people to piss off when you forget to ask them about something, you know. But
Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah. So actually, if anybody else has any questions, I'm still raising.
Tell us a little bit more about Vermont. I don't know that much about it. The politics, like is it Democrat or Republican, and what are major industries there? Like what are the major sort of businesses that are there today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the politics. I was at an international, well, I mean, the politics is extremely liberal. It's very, very left wing. I sort of characterize it being sort of, you know, close to Italian sort of in terms of perspective on sort of extremely left wing. I mean, but there's still the legislators have an interest in innovation and trying to be creative with things. So I mean, I think there's that. It's from a tax standpoint, it's a fairly high income tax state in terms of the tax structure. You know, getting this digital corporations thing through was quite a coup because I mean, the argument we had for them on that was that, look, these companies aren't going to be here anyway unless you let them be here this way. And the typical way states tax things are like based on sales, property, and I think employees. Well, a lot of these companies may not have any of those things. You may not even know where they are. So just let go of that. So that was part of that. As far as the economy goes, you know, I'd say it's probably a mix between some tech stuff. We have some manufacturing. You know, like probably everywhere else in the world, it seems like there's a lot of craft beer these days. They're about to legalize marijuana, you know, or it's like, but there, you know, some big hospitals. There's some, and trying to think, you know, the old bench. Pardon me?
They make good cheese as well.
Make good cheese. And the cabbage.
Sure.
You've got ice cream. You've got. I'm trying to think of the other things you know.
Timber.
Pardon me?
Timber.
No,
Forest
not much in the way of timber. And frankly, timber, to the extent there is any, it seems like it gets shipped to Canada to get processed and comes back in. But there's not a lot of that. And there's not a lot of farming. It's mostly dairy farming, but that's not a big component. But there's some of that. It's a fairly rural state, and it's unlike Arizona. You guys are more urban states, even though you wouldn't think of it. Vermont's all spread out because you can pretty much put a house anywhere and you have water, you know, flying electricity somehow. So, but it's a very heavily touristy place too. It's a very, very. I was going to say that's probably about now thinking 30 or 40% of the state income is probably from tourism. Between skiing in the winter, And then it's a nice place in the summer, the lakes and mountains and all sorts of stuff.
And what about the academic landscape?
Academic landscape is the University of Vermont, which is about 17,000 people in Burlington. Then there's some other smaller, there's Middlebury College, which is a well-known liberal arts college in Middlebury. And then there's a state college system. I don't know how many students are in that, but that's kind of it. And then there's a med school. The University of Vermont is a med school and the normal array of things you guys have in ASU and then the University of Arizona. But that's it. But no, it's a very liberal place. I mean, the other thing, it's ironic because the other thing Vermont's going through is digressing, but gun control is a big debate in Vermont. But Vermont's been historically anti-gun control, which is ironic given the fact it's sort of leftist. But I think that's changing because there's been a long, hunting's a big deal, so there's a lot of rural areas that's going on. So, but that's it. So. But there's, and like you guys, we're trying to get consortia together to sort of do tech innovation and try to get, this is great, we have a group like this coming here.
Is there kind of an incubator and tech ecosystem support? I mean,
Yeah.
here we have all sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm sure it's much smaller, but there's a Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies, which is an incubator center in Burlington, and there's a fairly robust, for our state of our size, venture arena. And it seems like, to me, most of the venture, a lot of venture capitalists are chasing sometimes not the greatest deals, but it's more competition for that these days. So, but yes, so there's a lot of craft beer, as I said.
Well, that's the fuel of innovation.
That's a fuel.
Right.
Exactly.
Caffeine and beer.
Yeah, singing craft beer.
Is any of this innovation being pushed by the Department of Defense? Like, is it
Part of what?
Department of Defense?
No. We have some General Dynamics. We have some. Yeah, and we have defense companies in our state. We've got companies that make a lot of eyewear for the military everywhere, Vision military, and then there's helmet men. They make helmets, and there's aerospace, but no, it's not being driven by them. At least not in my experience. We have some clients who are doing that.
So clients, but they're not really pushing for the innovation.
They may be. I'm not aware of, let's put it this way.
Oh.
I mean, I'm sure they were trying to push for innovation, but not to me, not through us, not through this initiative.
No.
So anyway, so let me talk about the bill a bit, which is sort of I think it's pretty interesting. So there are three parts to it, at least that are under consideration. One is an idea, and I'll talk about those two first and talk about it. One is the idea of personal information trust, and a trust company holding personal information. The second idea is a new type of LLC that building on the virtual LLC that would have be specifically intended to be used by companies using blockchain technology. So either a virtual currency company or somebody else is using blockchain technology with a distributed ledger doing something. And the third thing is just a public records piece, and I'll talk about that a bit. The first one I want to talk about is the personal information trust. And the idea behind that is that, as you guys all know, there's a lot of situations where personal data is out on the web, and you log in someplace or you give your information to somebody to buy something, or you log into Facebook or wherever, and the information, you don't really have control of the information a lot of the time. The merchant, whoever has your information, is using it to validate a financial transaction, but you may not, they may be hacked, or something may occur where information is being used by Facebook or Google or somebody else in ways you don't intend it to be used. And so the idea behind the personal information trust company is that this company would be regulated by the state of Vermont. It would have to be licensed. And you would then give your data, entrust your data to that company. It would have an obligation to you as the person giving it data to protect the data and to only give it out as authorized by you. And they'd share data through cryptographic means or some other means with merchants, other places, to validate transactions. The legal structure, the idea is that it would be a different thing than what exists today, because today your rights as a provider of data are governed by these massive contracts with Visa. The credit card companies are like 1,000 pages long, no one reads them. or, and they always can be changed, or other means, and it's all through a series of contracts, and this would be through a series of regulations regulated by our banking department. And so you would have a better idea as a consumer that your information is going to be perhaps protected better and only be used with your specific consent in ways you want it to be used. So so the idea is maybe better for consumers to do this, to give your data to the company that's in the business to protect it and only share it under limited circumstances. And then it's also maybe better for merchants. I mean, I'm sure this is true in Arizona. A lot of merchants don't want a lot of the information, their credit card and all this information they have, because it's going to be hacked. They could use it, they do get hacked, and they're in trouble. And so this way, you know, you may have it housed in a place that's really set up just to protect the information and only sharing it through cryptography or something in limited ways to validate transactions, but there'd be less information being housed in places where it's vulnerable. So that may be a reason why a merchant might want to do business with a company like this. But in any event, that's the idea. The idea is that to authorize our banking departments to set up and regulate these personal information trust companies. The challenge is that, we've been talking to people about this, the challenge is we need to find somebody, a business, somebody who's interested in running with this ball, because we don't, it's the statute that sort of authorizes these things to be created and regulated by our financial department, but we need somebody interested in working with us to sort of do that and define a business model, because a lot of businesses right now, feedback we've been saying, so if you're willing to give, people are willing to give their information to somebody right now and don't care about it being used, or don't care about as much about it being used by somebody else, why would somebody want to take on this liability, this extra responsibility? So we're trying to find, you know, so I think I think that idea has merit, but we need to find somebody who's
and could there be, or would there be a transaction fee for validating?
Yeah, that'd be the idea. It'd be transaction fees, and maybe you pay something to, yeah, go ahead.
So in that case, if it's a personal information trust company regulated by the state banking authority, who's going to be responsible for personally identifiable information?
It'd be the trust company itself.
That's authorized by the state?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're the trust company and somebody does business with us, that other company actually would have liability also for the storage of that data, even if we were doing the storage being regulated by you.
You know, I don't know if that's true. I think that the idea would be there may be some deference, there'd be some sort of protection to a company doing business with a trust company, that they're responsible for the data, and if you're relying on it, you're not going to be on the hook for it. That'd be the idea.
The company does business with.
Yeah, the merchant, yeah.
So there's a difference between a breach of data, which is an unauthorized access of data, and then the authorizing of the use of data. Is that the way this would work? So the trust company would be sort of like a fiduciary that would protect me from my data being used in ways that I probably wouldn't want.
That's right, that's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
But nobody has tested that yet, and you're looking for somebody that would be willing to do like a prototype or a.
Yeah, they actually a great thing for the sandbox. I was thinking in a sandbox, try to test it. Right, exactly. But see if you could, yes, because the idea would be basically this company would hopefully be more secure. It'd be in this business, so it'd be hopefully more secure. And one of the things that's somewhat related to blockchain technology, the ideas that came up with blockchain, so secure and more secure than other ways of maintaining information. So maybe a company using blockchain to sort of protect personal identifiable information would be a good idea. I've since heard that maybe blockchain isn't the greatest place to put information, because eventually it can be, at some point in the future, somebody will figure out a way to sort of come into the blockchain and get access to all this stuff. So it may not be a blockchain tech thing, but it still would be something I think that might have some appeal, because to consumers like you, because this company will be responsible for your information and protect it from, and be responsible to you for that. I mean, I think there is some responsibility now on the part of merchants, but I think the still thing is, you don't want Experian or whoever it is to sort of, it's fine, they're going to come and give you credit consulting for a year, but wouldn't you want to have a company that's more secure, that you didn't have this whole issue to begin with? So that's the issue for you. And then from the merchant standpoint, they may want to, again, if they can just have somebody else have it and send through some sort of cryptographic method or something to verify that it is Jay buying this thing, it may be better for merchants too, because they don't have to hassle with, again, a lot of this information they now have to protect and satisfy these credit card requirements to sort of maintain and protect it. So that's the idea. And again, this
So
is,
that's, that, and then,
Yeah.
that sounds like that could work in either a centralized or a decentralized
yes,
data construct.
yes.
And it also sounds like something that might spark an entire industry that could be used in multiple
Right.
industries and realms.
Yeah. I mean, the way I think about it, and I'm telling people in Vermont, it's like this, you know, this may have, this is one of those things that it may or may not work, but if it does work, it'll be great. And, you know, for us, you know, it'd be great for the state because we'd be, you know, be a lot of regulation and sort of, and innovation regarding this whole way of protecting data that doesn't exist
Can you,
today.
describe the type of personal private data you're talking about? Like what kind of data?
Well, it'll be a social security number.
So it's data from the state, not like,
Well, it could be anything.
I think if I can,
Go ahead.
if I can kind of riff with this a little bit, you know, when somebody shows their ID to buy liquor, all of the liquor merchant really cares about is your date of birth. They don't need to see your address. They don't need to see your driver's license number. They don't need to see any of that. But yet, in many of the validation methods, we disclose way more data than is needed, right?
Right.
So this would be like an intermediary that would assure Jay that the liquor merchant is only going to see my date of birth.
yeah, I got all that. I want to know what kind of data it's talking about. Like, is it data that's issued from the state, like a state issued ID or driver's license?
No, it's more general than that.
It's more general than that. I mean, any personal information you have that you
So,
provide.
I guess,
Could be your, yeah.
how is that really different than like the PCI standards that are already out there? I mean, the process of credit card transactions, things like that.
Because that's all done by contract. It's not, that can all be changed. Sorry. That's all done by, credit card stuff works well. I mean, but it's all done by contract. You don't necessarily have control over that information where it's gonna end up.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm a merchant, you know, let's just say I run a food truck, I just swear, you know, I never encountered the credit card data or other personally identifiable information at all. That goes to Square, you know, crypto protected.
Yeah.
And they handle that, and they're the ones that take the fall if something happens with it.
Right.
So this kind of sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's somewhat, maybe somewhat different, but I think the idea is it may be the same thing. Square takes the fall, but you're not. But I think the idea is again only sharing data through somebody who has an obligation to protect you. I mean, maybe Square does already, but that's sort of the idea.
It sounds like it's just a more robust set of filters around our data that we're granting a fiduciary responsibility to the center.
Yeah.
And do you have any thought about it being HIPAA and HIMSS compliant electronic medical record information being able to be filtered out appropriately, or is it on the demographic and financial side?
That's not defined. I mean, we haven't really figured out. We haven't narrowed the scope. And again, on the Square thing, I mean, the only thing I can say on the Square thing is we all have situations where now maybe you're covered anyway, but you're a merchant. We have clients and merchants get hacked, and we don't. And so they get access to personally identifiable information. They don't. It's not an excuse to call up Square and say, "Oh, you're responsible for all this stuff." I mean, it happens a lot, and I have clients constantly getting cyber attacked. And so if you can somehow protect that data better than you have it protected today. Now, you sound like you know more about the technology than I'll ever know, so you have an advantage over me. But that's sort of the thought behind, some of the thoughts behind it from a merchant standpoint would be that, because I do know that we're constantly having clients of ours running into the Attorney General's office, not constantly, but it happens quite a bit, saying, yeah, somebody broke in our system and they got access to people's personal information or credit card information and something. It's a problem.
Janae.
I have a question. I come from security background, so who would be in charge of auditing? Because right now you have different groups that go in and do audits. So would the state be doing an audit on themselves and there's no, I guess, check on that? So
Yeah, they may be doing, the state would be doing audits.
and then the other thing is with the European regulations coming in, yeah, they can go after the company. So are they just going to go after that company for all of this? I mean, that, say I use your service and I'm another company and there's a data breach. It's a liability.
Yeah, so repeat your question again, Mike.
So with the new European regulations,
Yeah.
going in on personal data,
Yeah.
they could go after you. If it's a data breach, they can go after you.
Right.
So if there is a data breach on your side, it kind of defines who's liable, that company or the company.
And is the data breach from the company, the merchant side, or from the?
It's a data breach, period. I mean, you would have to, I guess, trace it back.
Yeah, it's a data breach from the.
Legally, you're responsible for that breach, even if you have somebody else put that journalized cryptographic information on the blockchain, and you accept that verification, you're still responsible for the breach of
So
the.
if they're not being audited, it's a liability. It's liability.
Yeah, but I think we've collapsed breach with authorization. And I think what you're talking about is a new layer of more granular authorization to certain data records or pieces of the record, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to back up for a second, I think that the whole this idea, as is obvious from what I'm saying, needs to be developed a lot more. And the fundamental concepts are the ones I described. I'm not, as it's obvious in my answers to your questions, you guys know more about data protection and probably the rules and laws regarding than I do. I mean, but this is something where people are thinking about doing in Vermont. So,
Well, I think the point is whether.
One more question. Why would a company do it in Vermont? There's only 600,000 people there. Is it?
I think presumably you'd be able to do it. You'd start in Vermont, but I would hope you may be able to do it in a state basis and not to be licensed in other places. That'd be
But I think the higher level point is that Vermont is willing to experiment in some of these areas and grant these powers, let's say, to an LLC that's authorized to manage certain data.
But no takers so far.
We haven't passed a law yet. We have to pass a law, and then we try to develop regulations which make sense for takers. I know Virginia's approached this whole thing regarding data protection and I think they've gotten this morass of saying, if you take certain steps with respect to data protection, you're then not going to be liable. Sort of like they're trying to pass a law that basically says all these things to give some people some assurance that, if you do all these things. So this is just a different construct, which is basically the company, and it's liable for any so protects your data and only releases it. I mean, the other construct is like, if there's some way to, like on, again, Facebook, some of the other inadvertent personal data, it's got out, gets around it. So some way to protect that, so the stuff you could Google or something about yourself in a way which is makes more sense. So anyway, that's the idea there. And the second idea I wanted to talk about is a concept that's called blockchain LLC, which is basically, the idea is that this company would be set up. Let me back up before I talk about this. There's been a problem, a lot of legal commentators have talked about, where if you're doing business as like say Ethereum or Bitcoin or something, a distributed network of computers, decentralized network of computers, and you're earning money by virtue of transactions with the network. There's a definition in most states, I'm pretty sure here in Arizona, that says that if you're in a joint enterprise for the production of profit or generates profits, you're a partnership. you're a statutory partnership, a legal partnership. Why does that matter? Well, that matters because anybody who's deemed to be a partner is liable for all the jointly and severally liable for all the debts of the entity. So then the question becomes, all right, so potentially you have these miners, and anybody else has to do with Bitcoin, people start talking about this, would be potentially liable if something goes wrong with respect to the network or the currency or whatever, you know. And so the idea is, okay, so what to do about that? Well, one of the things we're thinking about doing about that is creating a sort of a subspecies of LLC that is sort of set up to deal with issues related to blockchain companies, distributed ledger companies. And that is to say that you can, instead of just in a normal LLC, you can have different levels of participants, and including anybody who has control of a distributed, the technology or involved with maintaining the distributed ledger can be some sort of participant as defined by the blockchain LLC, and be reported profits as defined by the blockchain LLC, so that it would perhaps yield the same economic benefits, but offer protection to people participating in it in a way which doesn't exist today. Same thing as the idea in our statute is some sort of consensus algorithm for making decisions and also governing how it operates. So if something happens, so that, you know, some sort of issue regarding consensus or voting, it's governed by a blockchain LLC, specific something in your blockchain LLC agreement that would allow you to resolve the controversy. Now, a lot of this stuff arguably can be done through existing LLC statutes, but the issue regarding who is a member of the LLC, who's getting profits, is a real problem in a normal LLC. This would allow sort of an idea of a participant to exist who would then earn money from being in the LLC, but and they may have voting rights, but they may not be a member in the way you have a member in a classic LLC would have. Member in a classic LLC have to sign something, which is an operating agreement, and sort of consent to being one. Well, this would allow you to have members, the participants in it, who have voting rights like members and have economic rights like members, but aren't classic members of an LLC. So this is an idea sort of to deal with this issue of potential liability, and also maybe having more, maybe more a rational sort of governance structure and economic sharing structure that exists today. So that's another thing we're trying to use. And actually, we have clients who are interested. That one, unlike the information trust, I do have clients who are interested. We pass this law, they're going to do it. Because, they have distributed ledger networks that they'd like to sort of implement this for. So, and the other thing, as I said a minute ago, our statute allows you to then elect to be taxed as a digital business entity. So you can set up this blockchain LLC in Vermont and be subject to minimal tax. You won't have any income tax to pay. You'd elect to be taxed as a corporation, but then you'd have very low, this sort of Delaware style income taxes, which are really pretty low. So that's the idea behind that. So that's the second thing we're doing, which is, I think, kind of interesting. And then the third thing we're doing is we're going through all of our.
Before you
go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So I just formed 2 LLC. Both of them have a Delaware. I have a Delaware phone number, and my business account is online through Capital One Spark. What's the difference between what I'm doing? Obviously, I'm not doing digital currency yet, but I'm just learning about all the blockchain stuff. What's the difference between what I'm doing and the transactions would either be through Facebook or through a website that I'm building? There's no brick and mortar, and there's not any employee. It's me.
Right.
That's controlling the LLC and whatever. So what's the difference between what I've done with Delaware and what you're talking about?
My construct would be, if you have a distributed ledger with a bunch of people who are miners, sort of maintaining independent validators, and sort of a blockchain is sort of just it's a normal, sort of more normal LLC, sort of a centralized sort of data. What kind of LLC is it?
It's just, I don't know that there's, I don't know. It's just me.
So the answer
I don't
is,
have any partners. It is me.
Yeah, well,
there's no minor.
this one, it's not designed for you.
Okay, it's designed if you have like multiple partners and they're like based in different locations. Like if I had a partner in California, and a partner in New York, and a partner in Delaware, like that.
if they were gonna sign, if they're all, you knew who they were, and they're all gonna sign the LLC agreement, and they're gonna come on, this is not designed for that either. This is designed for having a bunch of people who are perhaps minors in a decentralized ledger with a whole bunch of people who are participating in your network, but you may not even know who they are, frankly. But so for your business, what you're describing to your business, you're a classic LLC. It would be just like, you would set that up in Arizona too, I'm sure. It's really kind of, it's you know, that's allowed already by almost every state. This is sort of a new way of doing it and trying to sort of accommodate or anticipate a blockchain business.
And de-risk
this joint and several liability for people who are participating in it. That's the idea.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yes.
That's a question to the right there.
Sir.
So if I was a flower shop and I had a supplier, and the supplier had a shipper, and there was a grower somewhere, and there were some warehouses, and we were all keeping track of the shipments, and there were other flower shops and other truckers, and everybody's keeping track of where things are through a distributed ledger that says, here's where the shipment is, here's the payment's been made, the stuff's in the truck, here's where the truck is. Seems like that would be why isn't that a lot more like a standard business relationship? But if somebody gets hurt, truck runs into a car, and it's kind of like saying, well, the person who's like the people who are the victims in that case can sue everybody in the network.
It's a couple of things. One, I don't think we describe it to be a partner joint enterprise for the production of profit. You all have different.
Okay, so it's a production of profit. So
it has to be a pool. You're all in together to produce profit. And you're earning profits from each other's efforts in a joint enterprise. That's not what you're describing. You have different people in different pieces of the supply chain, each of which is earning a profit. Yeah, that's not this. And you don't have the risk of being a partnership.
Can I take a stab at an example that might clarify this? Let's say that we're a community that's doing some sort of function on the blockchain, and that maybe 10 of us are validators or miners, and somebody launches a class action suit against, the whole thing. Then the validators arguably could be liable for incorrectly validating some sort of transaction that caused some sort of harm.
Yes.
And this would provide a layer of protection for those validators.
That's correct.
Yeah, and maybe Dash could be an example of that, where you've got these master nodes that arguably are identifiable, and if somebody launched some sort of legal action against the entire network, those validators or those master nodes arguably could be liable, right? So this could come into play. Elio.
There's a fundamental issue that I see here, though. When you enter into an LLC or any kind of partnership, you're doing so, you have an operating agreement because you're agreeing to operate a certain way. You want to know who you're binding yourself to because of liability. And you're kind of setting lines between what liability will occur and what stays with the other person. You don't have that, and furthermore, if you don't know who you're entering into the agreement with, that just seems almost like a legal impossibility. So this reminds me of someone who pitched me the idea of anonymous lending. That's not an idea. First of all, you don't know if you're going to get your money back. And secondly, if you're anonymously lending to any random person, you don't know whether you're lending to help set up the bakery down the street from mom and pop or to ISIS or Al Qaeda. So you really want that guarantee. You want that strong identity. You want to know what this effort, whatever effort it is, computationally, et cetera, you need to know what that's going toward before you enter into any kind of agreement. And so it just, how do you square that? If you're going to be binding yourself with someone legally, how do you do that without strong identity?
Without knowing people, I mean, I guess I'm curious. I mean, there are lots of enterprises right now where people are engaged in jointly all sorts of things and not knowing other people in the enterprise. It's happening all over the place.
Stockholders might be an example.
All over the place. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, identity is not something that, there are all sorts of enterprises out there where people are participating in it and they don't necessarily know who the identity is of the other participants. They do know they're doing, maybe performing a function which entitles them to earn something, but you don't necessarily know who that person is. Yeah.
So, let's go ahead. I think that's a great conversation, by the way. I think I'm a little clear on what this is, and I'm really impressed with the innovation appetite for Vermont in exploring some of this.
Yeah, and actually, what I was going to say, the other thing I'd say, Jay, I said something about this before. I think a lot of this stuff is kind of like consuming information structure. It's going to evolve. I mean, we're really trying to sort of get something which some people are going to react to and maybe improve it as a way of sort of, doing something that may benefit businesses that are using blockchain technology, but it's going to go into directions we don't expect right now. I mean, I'm sure of that. So we have to change it.
All these kind of blockchain innovations is there any talk about consumer protection? And legislation in Vermont? And then
yes,
what level is it being covered? Is it just
well, I haven't covered it. The answer is yeah. We are doing. There's been a study, and there's been our AG's office is looking at doing other things to make sure there's consumer protection in connection with mainly these days it's in connection with cryptocurrencies, but also just in terms of doing business with some of these companies or being involved with some of these companies.
And consumers able to opt out?
Pardon me?
Are consumers able to opt out of getting their information going into?
Oh yeah, the information trust and the blockchain, that is totally elective. I mean, it's not, you wouldn't be required to give your information. This would be something that hopefully you want to do, but you're not going to be required to do it as a consumer. And as far as participating in a blockchain LLC, the idea is, well, if you're signing up, you're a minor, but you have certain rights and obligations, and you're going to have certain liability protections that so that you don't have right now.
It just sounds like it's a whole new realm of options that are tailored to what's happening with the technology.
Right, in terms of businesses using technology, right? To your points before. Okay, so last thing, just briefly, I'll talk about is, and it's going to dovetail into Propy a bit, is the idea that we're also making sure that it's clear in our statutes that public records and municipal records can be maintained through a blockchain method of document maintenance. So we're doing that in a whole bunch of different places in our statute, but that's something that's ties into what's going on with Propy, because it would specifically bless what Propy is doing. Now, having said that, we don't need this legal change for Propy to do what it's doing already, but we're trying to make it clear that remove any doubt as far as Propy goes, but also allow the Secretary of State and other places in state government to maintain records and to try to keep them in using blockchain technology. So,
Peter, would you, for those of us that aren't familiar with Propy and the transaction that happened,
right?
Would A, you describe the transaction?
Yes.
And B, talk about some of the mechanics that happen behind the scenes in order to get that actual to happen.
I will do my best with the technology and mechanics. I can describe the transaction, but the Propy transaction. Propy has sort of a series. I don't know if it's backing up. I don't know if who they are. Go ahead.
I got to say a couple of. First of all, you represent Propy, right? Second of all, in Desert Blockchain, we talk about a lot of different constructs, and we don't endorse any particular construct. Just a little disclaimer. And we don't recommend the purchase or sale of anything ever. So.
Except pizza.
Well, pizza's a sanctioned. We have a special pizza sandbox, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So Propy. It's a company that's it's issued. There's Propy cryptocurrency out there. They've got funding through funding through an ICO, but its objective is to sort of create a sort of a blockchain technology based way of trading or investing in, selling, investigating, and generally transacting in real estate. So they're trying to set up a platform that does all these things. And so there are different elements to it. One is sort of they're trying to set up a registry with respect to real estate records. so that when a deed is recorded in the property registry, you can find it through cryptographic hash on the deed. You can then refer back to when get the information regarding the deed off the property registry to refer back to this deed. And so what they're trying to do is then migrate from that to a second phase, which would then have them able to, when a town clerk gets a deed, they would immediately with a hashtag or hashtag on it, they immediately sort of notify property so it could be recorded properly in the property registry. And then eventually they're trying to get to a system where they'd be able to electronically just record deeds using blockchain. So have the whole transaction evolve through possibly using cryptocurrency, but maybe other currency. Have the whole real estate transaction be in the form of a series of contracts that involve reporting of the deed through blockchain technology with the town clerk, or here it would be the county clerk. And so the transaction in Vermont, what happened was it was a conveyance of some property by an owner of it was a condo, and she conveyed it into an LLC that was owned by her and a couple other investors. And so what happened was we had to go to the town clerk and basically get the town clerk to recognize the fact that there was going to be a cryptographic hash in this deed, and what it's going to mean for the town clerk in the future. You're going to start looking at these cryptographic hashes, and when you see them, you'll make sure that they're recorded in the proper registry. But this is the first deed that actually that's been recorded in the United States, frankly, through a cryptographic reference hashtag in a blockchain registry.
So it's kind of like a supplement to the existing and legacy title.
Yeah. So
it's not doing anything on its own. It's kind of building something on top of what already exists.
Right. That's the big elephant in the room regarding all this real estate recording, is that, when are you going to move from a dual system to a system which just involves a blockchain registry, or sort of as a way of doing it. And I think Propy's vision is basically to get enough information regarding these properties in its system when they're conveyed, that the next time you buy a property that's been sold through the Propy system, this is one way of doing it, you would be able to, through the blockchain records related to the particular property is already in their registry, you'd be able to sort of update title using that, and hopefully then have enough of the town records would be able to show you if anything new has been reported on the real estate, and the Propy registry would have everything that was back to since the last time it was recorded. So you can kind of investigate title much more efficiently through the blockchain registry. The other thing is, frankly, there are title companies out that are interested in it, and sort of doing this and sort of using blockchain technology to sort of investigate title, and they'd write the insurance. So as long as you can do something in a manner in terms of investigating title that satisfies the title insurance company so much that they'll write insurance for that property based on what they can determine off of the blockchain registry, you have assurance as to title with respect to the property. And it's a big piece of conveying the property. But basically, Propy's trying to migrate from, like, as you say, this is just a standalone thing, to integrate it with the town clerk. So the town clerk then is constantly integrating it. They're going to try to get to the point where they can then electronically file. These town clerks, all their data, electronic data now anyway. And I don't know if it's true in Arizona, but in Vermont, a real estate deed can be in digital form. It can be signed digitally, it can be filed digitally. So I don't know if that's true here or not, but you can do that in Vermont. So the idea is you could, in theory, have the whole thing done digitally and electronically. So
that sounds really cool, because it sounds like a graceful transition from the legacy into the contemporary. And when you get this added blockchain functionality, it sounds like you could do more things than would be possible with the legacy system.
I think that's right. I mean, it's complicated. You guys know with real estate, I mean, you have to build in a function for, like, inspecting how do you inspect the property, right? So you're going to have some sort of inspection report, some sort of function built in for that. But there's a lot of stuff with respect to the real estate. You got an automated contract completion, and some sort of smart contract which involves a payment of cryptocurrency to deposit into account, that once certain things are satisfied, the title insurance has been issued, the inspection report's been issued, and then the property is transferred, and the currency gets immediately given to the seller. The buyer automatically gets a deed, and it all sort of happens in a more efficient way than it happens today.
So Peter, if it's okay with you, we do have Leslie Pico here from Propy, who's the community manager, and Sarah Richardson, who owns a local real estate firm that's using Propy. Did you have anything else about the general scope of Vermont that you? I'd like to go ahead and introduce you two and have you come up, and maybe we could focus more on
anything that it was inconsistent with what you're going to say.
And you, Peter, do you have can you stay for a little bit longer?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
You guys got in Vermont, do you have any blockchain or cryptocurrency friendly banks?
Not that I'm aware of. No, the answer is not that I'm aware of.
So,
yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, Leslie Pico runs another blockchain set of events down at Galvanize, and she's also the community manager for Propy. And Sarah Richardson has a real estate company here in Scottsdale, and you've been using Propy.
Correct.
And why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you're using it and so forth. And then after we talk a little bit more specifically about Propy, then we can kind of do like a panel and just open it up for questions. So maybe that 5 minutes.
My name is Sarah Richardson. I'm the founder and CEO of True Realty. We're based in Scottsdale. We consider ourselves a tech-enabled real estate brokerage. All of our data flows seamlessly through all of our operations and our third-party platforms. And my husband is fairly senior at ASU, runs technology over there as well. And we've been talking at home for years about how blockchain would be amazing for a real estate transaction. And so we chat about it at home all the time. And I'd known Leslie off and on for about a year or so, and I saw her on Facebook, of course, of all places, and I was like, what is she doing down at Galvanize? And I see something about blockchain and real estate, and I immediately messaged her. Maybe was it like 4 months ago or so? And I said, I need to meet with you immediately. I want my brokerage to get behind this as the first brokerage account to be signed on with Propy. And so we've been working toward that and getting our sellers educated and making sure that they understand, because we're not really fully protected with our listing agreements. There's nothing about blockchain technology in our listing agreements. So in the process of getting our sellers on board and adding all of our listings to the third-party platform. And right now I think we have, we just got our 13th development project. So I think we have about 16 listings officially as of today now on the platform.
And the majority of them are also for sale and crypto. So we are bringing it to the state, and hopefully relatively soon we'll be able to engage with the buyer, whether it's internationally with cash, because we do facilitate transactions in that respect as well, or somebody who's trying to exchange with crypto for either in beautiful Arizona. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. But yeah, Sarah's phenomenal. I think we connected anyway through technology. I have a previous technology background. Got into consulting in the real estate space and realized that none of the startups today have addressed the issue from start to finish. It was just kind of taking technology, taking technology and applying it to different verticals and making that specific space a little more efficient, but not necessarily solving the problems from start to finish. So what was great to me about our founder at Propy is that she had a software background, and she had a degree from Oxford in sustainable development. Her name's Natalia. When Bulgaria was accepted into the European Union back in 2007, there was a huge just kind of explosion for properties. People were looking to buy and sell. What she realized at that point in time, consulting with other marketing agencies and doing the design and things for those people, was that these individuals were having a hard time identifying the opportunity, and once they did, how do they take it from start to finish? So that's where Propy is different, especially when you think about any other blockchain or cryptocurrency real estate startup in the space today. It seems that the majority of them are only attacking it from the title registry and the blockchain perspective. So we're starting from the beginning. And so there's a couple of different products that are involved in our application. The first is the marketplace. So when you log on, we have a little over 200,000 listings currently on Propy.com. I encourage everybody who has not yet to create a profile to create a profile. So you can browse the properties that we currently have listed, and they're all over the world, not just Arizona. The majority of the ones here listed in Arizona come from True Realty and Sarah's phenomenal agents there. But we also have properties listed in London, Dubai, Egypt, South America, Canada, all over the world. We also recently signed a contract with brokerage in California, so we do have some beautiful properties in the Pacific Palisades listed that you can pay with cryptocurrency. So that's also where we did not want to limit ourselves. What's really valuable was that underlying technology. We were able to allow these international and foreign buyers to effectively manage the risk that comes with these transactions through a variety of smart contracts. They're all multi-sig. Every individual person that's currently involved in the transaction, we still engage. When it comes to inspections and how that's all incorporated, those individuals are also engaged in the transaction. All the criteria has to be met before you move on to any of the next stages of the transaction from start to finish. We just made it easier and more seamless. We're allowing for the discovery of these opportunities. We're right now, as early as we are, engaging just our leadership, executive, our development team is all completely hands-on when we're facilitating these transactions and inquiries that we're receiving right now. So I'm super excited about it, just because I feel this is an opportunity to engage with individuals who have never been able to extract value from properties in rural, remote parts of the world, because there are no official land registration structures, frameworks, whatever the case is. But today, with the blockchain, we can now recognize that this individual owns this parcel of land, and if I'm sitting in my house here in sunny Arizona, I can trust that and purchase this property from the comfort of my own home without even leaving my country. And this individual can now extract value from that property. That gets me excited. What kind of economic impact do you think that's going to have globally? What is that going to do for society? Where do we go from here? It just opens up a whole new world and so many other opportunities. Sarah was incredibly excited about adopting it. She didn't ask too many questions right off the bat. She's like, I'm in, just let's do it. So for brokers and realtors, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of ambivalence or apprehensiveness really about it. But it's just embracing this tool that can help you become a better service provider or an individual who can better help the individuals that trust you. You know, you were hired for a reason, and it just makes you, you know, better able to supply those services to these individuals. I don't think that technology will ever replace. See your hand.
Interrupt and ask questions?
Yeah.
Many countries have obviously their own legal systems, civil law, common law type things, their own registries, taxation. Does your system connect to those somehow?
Yes, so for more progressive governments, we start out slow, just as we discussed with the pilot in Vermont. We're not trying to rush things along, but we stay within the letter of the law. Whatever the current, you know, regulations, jurisdictions, whatever that says, we follow. As we move forward, understand where the pain points were, what we correct, you know, reflect back on how the transaction happened, make those corrections, move forward to the next iteration of that pilot until ultimately we would like for those governments to then fully adopt our title registry on the blockchain. But for those that do not, we have developed a set of API libraries so that they can interact with our registry. especially in those states where this is admissible in court law. Another, an additional exhibit, there's a dispute, they can access that. Right now, we are working on a Propy Explorer. If you go to etherscan.io, it's got an endorsement for that. Excuse me.
And this is running on the Ethereum blockchain.
Yes.
So, a low-hanging fruit question, but what do you guys do, or how do you respond when stuff like these kind of brings Ethereum to its knees? Because there's no proven solution to that in place in other so gas costs.
I'm around that answer.
Like the Dubai registry, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I hear it's a total mess. The fact that they don't even know if anybody owns anything. It's just the king said that, yeah, like you have a corporate structure and now you sold to 10 million people. How do you interact with that?
Tim, is the blockchain implementation a total mess, or the legacy registry?
The legacy.
The
Yeah,
legacy
the
is
existing legal system doesn't recognize blockchain, and they have taxes that are charged per transaction, 2% sale.
Yeah, part of the reason I asked the question is because the United Arab Emirates has, I guess, put a stake in the ground, they're gonna put all their governmental records on the blockchain by 2020. And they've allocated something like $200 million to do that. So that's why I was asking. The
Yeah,
question.
maybe Dubai's already there, I don't know. Like maybe Angola as an example, I don't.
I guess overall, any of those countries that do currently have whatever their registries are in complete disarray, I mean, that's just another, I guess, low-hanging fruit for us because we're able to come in and present a solution. We're able to do the custom development. We can add in any additional smart contracts to be able to meet their criteria of what the needs are for that jurisdiction. That's what the pilots are for.
So before we get into more questions, could I pull a couple chairs up? You can share this.
Yeah.
Peter, did you guys have anything else?
Well, the one thing I was gonna say is, I mean, I'm a small little boutique real estate brokerage in Scottsdale with 85 realtors. But for me, I saw the value because I can get a global presence in Scottsdale, Arizona by leveraging this software. So just wanted to add that. That was my main decision for it.
Leslie, when you were getting ready to take a drink, you were just getting ready to tell us to go to Etherscan or something.
So right now on Etherscan is where you can go and review the transactions that have been done, but we are developing a Propy Explorer sort of interface just to make it more consumable for the average non-technical person to be able to search and verify what's happened throughout the life, excuse me, of a transaction.
Go ahead, question about this.
Oh, yeah, the question was, given that everything currently is in the smart contracts, are you affected by it, and how do you handle stuff like activities that kind of bring the network to its needs?
So a significant portion of what we raised went towards the Ethereum Foundation. We continue to support them. We're new, but how long do you want to wait before you create some revolutionary changing application?
So, yeah, I was curious, I don't know if you guys are able to go into that tonight or at all, but about the peer-to-peer aspect that you guys are moving towards.
One milestone at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe I might understand the nature of the network that you've set up, but property lasts for hundreds of years. The paper mechanism, there are people out there have deeds from the 1800s. There's not much technology that's lasted for hundreds of years. So, when we cast legal documents into some kind of a smart contract in a blockchain, I hope there's some planning for how that evolves over the next couple of centuries or beyond, right? So that it's still readable and understandable. I know it's all.
So I'm always fascinated actually by that question because is it something that's going to concern us? And if it isn't, why should we care? On the other hand, future generations and how communities and countries and the powers that be evolve, should we do our best for that? But where do you draw the line? You know, where's the distinction between how far or how much we invest in that and how much we worry about where we are today and what we can do now and how this will help us today and kind of change things, make it more efficient and move forward. You know, we introduced floppy disks or even ones before that, the square, because yeah. Were we really worried about like accessing that data in 20 years? I don't think it even was. We were just fascinated and excited that you know, now we have this. Or, you know, who still owns a VHS?
Well, I think, you know, I guess my point is a lot of the things you hear about
And laser discs.
on blockchains are kind of, especially not so much the cryptocurrency stuff, but the, you know, the sort of, my supply chain example from earlier, right? The letter of credit or the transit of a container over through the shipper to the warehouse. That's all kind of, you know, lasts a few days, weeks, months, a year, 2 years. Technology doesn't, you know, change as fast, but it's not that fast. But you know, someone made the point we were talking earlier. You know, what happens when quantum computing comes out and all, you know, existing cryptology is crackable?
So I think we just need to be focused on more cryptographic. I know exactly. It's just how do you start to design the algorithms, I guess, and engage those individuals in the maths who can start building them that would be resistant to whatever the quantum computing
plan for the evolution of a, you know, if the house suddenly gets a spaceport, how do I modify the contract that describes the property to add that new feature into the property description? Other than a text field that I put.
Well, okay, so thank you for the question. I think it's a great question, and I'm not sure anybody could really answer it at this point, but it's a great consideration. So Elio, then Caroline, and then Kyle.
So 2 things regarding that question. I love that question because it's not like a what if, like this has already bitten us twice in human history. The first big forgetting was the transition from cotton-based paper, which is pH neutral, to wood pulp-based paper, which is why any paper that's within this little window after the transition yellows and falls apart. No matter how hard you try to preserve it, the paper destroys itself over time. Whereas cotton-based paper, I've actually seen Galileo's original notebook because it was on cotton-based paper, and as long as you don't do anything stupid, that's going to be around for 1,000 years. So we lost a lot of data and are continuing to lose data that was recorded on paper that was after that transition. The other thing that happened more recently, you mentioned CDs and floppy disks. So most rewritable CDs, libraries were told, oh, throw away all your microfiche. Put it all on CDs, it'll last forever. Which, if you put it on the right CD, is totally true. If you put it on an M disk or you put it on an old-timey stamped disk, it will last pretty much forever. But most of the rewritable disks that they moved all the microfiche to were actually made of organic dyes. The libraries have been scrambling because they tossed all their microfiche, and all the CDs last maybe 10 or 20 years, and they get to a point where even with Google Larry Solomon coding, you can't read anything on it. So we've already lost a huge amount of human knowledge in unsuccessful transitions from one technology to the other twice. I'm actually more concerned about the opposite problem, though. And my concern with the blockchain is that even though technically it's not immutable, because anyone can fire up a full node and grab a full copy, it pretty much like practically is immutable. And we've seen foreign countries in the Nordic states, one of them put out anonymized health records. So these had all the identifying information scrubbed from the health records. The problem is that people, even with the Cambridge Analytica and Facebook stuff in the news, the general public barely understands the danger of correlational and recorrelation attacks. These are really, really easy to do with today's technologies. The tools are getting better rapidly. So if we released all of the anonymized records in Arizona, no identifying information. Let's say I wanted to find one of the people on stage. Depending on which person, if I look for a male or a female, I can toss half the records right away. Now I have half the data set to look through. If I know roughly where you're from, what city you're from, I can throw everything that's not in that city away. If I know your age, I can throw most of the other records away. And now our data set's getting pretty small. And it doesn't take much in terms of knowing a condition. Maybe I saw something in, in the medicine cabinet, or when you were over, saw something in the purse or something, or just saw you buying something. Maybe I'm a vendor. And I
You're
have
such a
a rewards card, so I know what you buy.
I want to know
Yeah.
what kind of resources you have and how long you took to find all of this and how long you took to.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So-
Speed in a few hours of the range.
So there's no doubt, Elio, that there's a whole bunch of unanswered questions, and
But what
every paradigm shift
what I want
does not eliminate all problems. It just opens up in a whole new set of problems.
There are mistakes that are reversible and there are mistakes that are not.
Mhm.
And it bears, one of the things that was just said next door, there was a big code.org educational event for teachers in cybersecurity. And they had the head of cybersecurity for GoDaddy. And he was mentioning how some of these attacks are getting easier, kind of going global. There are mistakes that can be undone, and with blockchain, it's out there forever. Just because you shut off all the nodes you know about doesn't mean you have all the data contained again. So security needs to be baked in from the beginning. We need to be considering these adversarial use cases and building systems that are robust and resilient against those use cases. Because if you think Cambridge Analytica stuff is depressing, wait till someone blockchains all the things and we can't put it back. And now it's out there forever.
Well, what's depressing for me is I still haven't figured out how to set the clock on my VCR. So, I'm at least a decade behind. So, Caroline, and thanks for those comments, Elio. Your counter considerations are valuable.
I just hope to scare you all enough so you don't show up on the news twice.
All right, Caroline.
I was curious to learn just a little bit more about the real estate listings and the transactions that you all are working on. Are the sellers of your listings agreeing to accept payment in crypto? Will they receive payment in fiat? If you could just maybe explain a little bit more about how an actual transaction you envision would work. I'd be really fascinated.
Yes, when you list a property on the application, there's a slew of currencies that you could select as what you're willing to accept in exchange. So you could list a property and not accept Bitcoin or Ethereum. And those are the two that we have on right now. We're looking at some altcoins, but it's not really a priority. We want to wait to see what has substance and sticks around. But you can strictly list a property and be willing to only accept USD or the yen, whatever it is that you're willing to accept. We do not exchange currencies for another currency. We facilitate the flow of the funds from the buyer to the seller. So if you're willing to accept Bitcoin and your buyer is going to pay you in Bitcoin, we don't even determine the exchange rate if you have it listed for this specific USD dollar amount until you get to the payment portion of the transaction. When that happens, everybody agrees. The smart contract releases the funds into the wallet and it's settled.
So if a seller selects Bitcoin but the buyer is Ether or US dollar, is that?
So that's agreed
that
upon.
can't happen?
That's agreed upon from the very beginning. So it's clear and it's agreed upon from the beginning what denomination the buyer is going to pay in. And then the actual exchange rate, so say that the seller agreed to accept your Bitcoin, but you had the property listed as a USD dollar amount, what that exchange is agreed upon when you get to the payment part, the escrow smart contract.
So Kyle, one last question, and then
I'm actually good.
You're good?
Yeah, you kind of summed up a little bit what I was going to touch on. So,
Okay, Mike, you get the last question.
I have a question for the Vermont transaction. Is it in addition to the regular transaction they did the hashing, or is the hash supplanting or the way you would have done it without the transaction?
Well, actually, it's interesting listening. The transaction in Vermont was involved the hash being put on the contract as part of the transaction. It wasn't a third, but it wasn't a sort of a third party listing sort of sale transaction. It was a conveyance of a property into an LLC, and as part of that transaction, for purposes of putting the thing on the property registry, the person conveying the property had a hash put on the deed that allowed it to be recorded in the property registry. So it got recorded, and then the deed itself was then recorded. The recorded deed was put in the property registry.
So it was an addition to.
It was an addition to. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up this portion for now. And by the way, Propy provided the pizza tonight. I want to thank you for that. And we want to thank Grant King for this wonderful space. And thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Jay, for facilitating.
That's right. And if you're new to the Desert Blockchain events, so we wrap this up at 8:30, and then we migrate over to Canyon 49 until about 10. We shut them down, do that, and they close at 10. But that's after networking, after session networking. So thank you so much for being here. We've got about 5 or 10 more minutes, and I'm going to give you some updates. But thank you so much.
Okay.
So, I'd like to let you know about a few things that are coming up that are part of the community. So I'm going to do a little screen sharing here. And let's see. So the first thing is we've got the Arizona Blockathon coming up on April the 28th. This is the second event like this. And basically we're reaching out. This consists of 50 developers and designers by invitation getting together for a day of talks in the morning and then team projects in the afternoon that are designed to be the start of possibly prototypes. And we're reaching out to organizations and companies in Arizona to submit use cases to suggest to the teams to build prototypes upon. So if you are a developer, please go ahead and register on Arizona Blockathon in the meetup, and I'll be getting in contact with you to let you know if your application is accepted or not. And if you have a use case, please let me know, and we'll be posting those use cases. So we had the first one on February the 3rd. We had 5 teams come out of that. 3 ended the day with working code after an afternoon of basically hacking. That was pretty amazing. You can see all that on desertblockchain.com. So that's coming up. The other thing that is in the works that I'm just announcing tonight is the launch, whoops, wrong thing, done. Let's present instead of share. So there's a new development called Desert Blockchain Camps. And we had a session back in the fall, which was then called Community Nodes. And this is actually going to happen. In fact, starting next week. I just signed the rental agreement today. And basically, it's designed to build community, foster exploration in the blockchain space and innovation. And it's going to start here at the, this is an old picture, but we're mixing the old with the new. There's actually a motel on Grand Avenue and Roosevelt and 15th Avenue. It was called the Motel Desert Sun. It's now called Desert Sun Plaza.
and it's right in the heart of like the arts district. So we're going to take a portion of their vacant parking lot and create a dynamic collaborative workspace. And if you're interested in participating in that, it's going to be limited to basically 10 people. Well, actually, it'll be 12 people total, myself and a guest that I'll invite. But it's going to work this way. There's going to be 5 people that will be sort of the voting paying members. It's going to be $500 a week. And they are entitled to not only vote, but also invite one other person who's sort of like the guest. One of the 2 of those people has to know how to code, has to have at least 1 year of coding experience. And it's by invitation, but if you're interested in participating in that, please let me know, and we'll go from there. Now, so this is kind of an experiment. We'll see how it goes, but we're planning to have workshops. If you'd like to know how to build something in IPFS, something in one of the blockchain constructs that we're experimenting with, like SubG coin, Naive coin, or Toy Chain, those are the type of things we're going to be working on. We can also experiment with some of the projects that were started on February the 3rd, but this is, to my knowledge, the first blockchain collaborative in Phoenix or Arizona. So just to give you an idea of what else is around there, well, first of all, that's a map. It's, you know, pretty centrally located. But diagonally across the intersection is the Bikini Lounge. So there's a lot of things that are going on down there, and the Bikini is a pretty cool place if you haven't been there. This is in the heart of the Arts District, and we will be there during the next First Friday. Immediately within like 2 doors is the new location for the Barrio Cafe. And right next to the Barrio Cafe is this building, which is now called Bragg Pie Factory. So it's a cool little bake shop and whatever. So that's pretty much it. If you're interested in this, let me know. It's going to be happening Monday.
Now, what are your timings?
It's going to be open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And it's going to be designed so that we have as blank a canvas as possible to do some really cool stuff with IoT and the blockchain, as well as we can create our own blockchain collaborative usage, possibly our own cryptocurrencies. We can do our own identity. It's basically just give me a parking lot and let's see what we can create on top of this thing. So it is, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you'd like to be part of it, you know, let me know. Any questions about that?
Are you literally in the parking lot, or are you
Literally in the parking lot.
Good thing it's April.
And there's a cookie shop there. There's a coffee shop. There's a new restaurant that's opening, and there's a hair salon, so you can look good in the parking lot. So that's Desert Blockchain Camps, and this is designed so this the first pop-up that happens in downtown Phoenix, this can be replicated in other parts of the valley, and we'll see if we can tie them all together via the internet and via the blockchain. So any questions about that? Let's see. I think that's about it. And go back to this. Oh, we're 4 minutes over. I apologize for that. We will wrap it up right now. And please hang around, meet somebody, tell them what you're interested in, tell them what you need. You know, what does your project need? What are you interested in pursuing? And but please migrate over to Canyon 49. So thank you very much.